there, this is Dr. Marissa May. In this video, we're going to take a look at linear equations. Now, we're going to begin with the slope, which measures the steepness, or I might add the flatness of a line. So that is how high, how steep is that line, or how flat is it? You might know this slope known as the pitch of a roof. I know that many construction workers refer to the steepness of a roof line as its pitch, and that's actually the slope that we're looking at. Now, here in our math class, we're going to look at the slope using the formula the rise over the run if we're looking at a graph, or we're going to use the formula y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1 if we're looking at two sets of ordered pairs. Now, let's take a look at how we might use both of those here. If we want to find the slope between point B and C, what I would do here is first start at point B, and I need to calculate the rise. How far do I need to rise above point B to get even with point C? So you can see that I've placed an arrow here to denote how far I have to rise. And you literally can count those squares. So it looks like here I would go up 3. That means my rise, or the top of this fraction here, is positive 3. You may be asking yourself, why positive? Because we went up. Now from here, we're asking ourselves, how far do we have to run to get to C? So you're going to, again, count those squares on the grid here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And our run is a positive 6 here because we went to the right. So if we had gone left, that would have been, our run would have been down. I'm sorry, our run would have been negative. And now you can see our slope is 3, 6. Or if we reduce that, that would give us 1/2. We divided both the 3 and the 6 by 3, and we got 1/2. Now that is how we use the rise over the run formula of the slope here. If we're looking at a graph, let's do one more here, A to C. So you're going to start at A, and the reason I start at A is because it's the furthest to the left, okay? So I'm going to ask myself, how far do I rise? Notice in this one, we actually go down. That's important because that's going to make our rise negative. So count those squares, 1, 2, 3. Looks like our rise is -3, again, because we went down. And now from there, how far do we run? Well, we run to the right. You can count those there as well. You're going to get 7. So my slope here from A to C is -3/7. Remember, it's negative because we went down for our rise. Our run was positive because we went to the right. Now let's change gears and look at, how do I find the slope if I'm given not a graph, but this time I'm given a set of ordered pairs. So this is, we're going to use the far right part of this formula where we're looking at the y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So you may ask yourself, where do I get that y2, y1, x2, x1? I'm glad you asked. It actually comes from these coordinate points that we are given. So we're going to first identify that x1 comes from the x coordinate in the first point, and y1 comes from the y coordinate in the first point. So that's where we got the -2 and the 3 part. Then the x2 would be the 4, and the y2 would be the 8 here. Now, we're going to place these numbers very strategically in the formula that we have for the slope. Look at where this would show up in our formula. We have our y2 minus y1, so we're subtracting those two y values. That's our 8 minus 3. And then on the bottom, we're going to subtract our x2 minus x1. Very important. Order matters when we subtract. So you need to make sure you get x2 first minus x1. So in this case, that's 4 minus -2. You'll notice I put a parentheses there to make that stand out quite a bit. And now you're going to do your subtraction. On the top, 8 minus 3 gives us 5. And on the bottom, very carefully with subtracting a negative, we're going to get 6. Now, if you want to use your calculator to make sure you don't mess up with those negative, I definitely encourage you to use that. If you need a free graphing calculator, I've got one in the description below that you can link on. It's 100% free. Love the Desmos graphing calculator. While you're there, be sure and click the like and subscribe button. That way you get a notification every time a new video is posted. Now, we're going to go one step further. This time we're going to be drawing a line. We're going to start at a point, -3, 1. Then we're going to use the slope of 3 to help us get a second point, because in order to draw a line, you only need 2 points. So like I said, let's start with this point we are given, -3, 1. We'll plot that. Remember, you start at the origin, you're going left 3 and you're going up 1, and that places us in this location on the graph. Now, we have a slope of 3, and I want you to remember that 3 can always be written as 3/1, because remember, our rise over run slope meant that our slope was a fraction. So you'll notice from this point, -3, 1, I've gone up 3, and now I'm going to run 1 to the right. So I'll place my second point right there. So again, I started at my -3, 1. I went up 3, right 1. Remember, because I made my slope a fraction. And now I've got my second point that I can draw my line that I was asked to draw now. Again, all I needed was a point and a slope in order to draw this line. Let's do one more like this. I want to draw a line through the point 5, 2, and I want it to have a slope of -4/3. So I'm going to start by plotting that point 5, 2. I'm going to go to the right 5 and then up 2 from the center, and that lands me in this location. Now, very carefully, our slope is already written as a fraction. However, it's negative. So let's think this through. What are we going to do? We're going to take the negative with the rise part. So instead of going up 4 and right 3, we're going to go down 4 and right 3. Again, starting from this point 5, 2, we've already plotted. We're going down 4, right 3. So there's my down 4. There's my right 3. So I'm going to place my second point right there. And now I've got 2 points. I'm ready to draw my line between these 2 points. Very nicely there. Okay, so remember, start with your point, then use your slope to help you get the second point, and then you can draw your line. Now, if we switch gears, we want to be able to write the equation of a line. So we're going to start with the equation of a line, y equals mx+ b. Very important. The m here represents the slope, and the b represents the y-intercept. So if we look at an equation like y equals -3/2 x minus 3, I want you to see the connection that the m, the number in front of x, is the slope. So in this equation, m would be -3/2, because -3/2 is being multiplied in front of x. Now the number that's being added to x is the y-intercept. Now it says subtract 3. So I need you to think about subtracting 3 being the same thing as adding -3, and that's why b here is -3. So for this equation, we would have a y-intercept of -3. That means we start on the y-axis at -3, right there. Now think about our slope. We just worked with our slope being a fraction, -3/2 here. So which direction am I going 3? Which direction am I going 2? Well, the 3 is negative, so we're going down 3 and right 2 from this y-intercept. So I'm going down 3, there it is, right 2, and there's my second point, and now I'm ready to graph. So friends, here's what we've added. We started with an equation this time. We picked out the slope in the y-intercept, which by the way is a point, and then we went to our graph and we plotted our y-intercept, used our slope to get a second point, and then we could draw our line. Okay, let's do one more like that, because I feel like that sometimes the second time you hear something or you see it, it clicks. So let's take a look. For this equation, we want to find the slope, find the y-intercept, and then, of course, we want to graph it. So think about our y equals mx plus b. You're looking for that number being multiplied in front of x to be your slope. In this case, that's the 2. The number that's being added to x, that's your y-intercept. That, in this case, that's 4. So now you have your slope, 2, or we might think of it as 2 over 1, and you have your y-intercept. So we're ready to go to our graph. Remember, we start with the y-intercept. So we're going on the y-axis to 4. There's our point. And then think about our slope. Remember, it's 2 over 1. So think about which direction am I going 2, which direction am I going 1? I'm going up 2 and right 1. Good. So let's take a look at what that looks like. So I'm going up 2 and right 1. There's my second point right there. And I draw my line. So friends, it's all about finding that slope and the point. Okay, if we have the equation, we can find a slope and a y-intercept. That y-intercept is the point we can start with. All right, let's add one step to that. Okay, what if our equation is not y equals? Well, then we need to do some work to get it to be y equals, because the only way I can tell the slope is to have y equals and everything else on the other side, and then I can easily pick out the slope and the y-intercept. But if I don't have y equals, I have to think about how do I get it into y equals? So let's take a look at this equation. I've got 3x minus y equals negative 6. I need y by itself. In order to do that, I'm going to have to subtract the 3x. So you'll notice that I'm subtracting 3x from the left side of the equation, and I'm subtracting 3x from the right side of the equation. Now, what that looks like after I do the subtraction is I have negative y equals negative 3x minus 6. I have a lot of students who lose the negative on the y, and so I want you to be really aware of that so you don't fall into that category. Also, look at the right side. I could have written that as negative 6 minus 3x, but I chose to write it as negative 3x minus 6, and here's the reason I did that. You'll remember we're trying to get it into y equals mx plus b. So that means I'm trying to get y equals x, something with x, and then plus or minus. So that's why I've gone ahead and reordered them so that I can get the y equals mx plus b form. All right, one more step then. I need y equals, and I have negative y equals. So I've got to get rid of that negative 1, and the way I do that is to divide by negative 1. Or multiply by negative 1. So what I did is I chose to multiply everything in the equation by negative 1. And that's going to give me y equals positive 3x plus 6. You did kind of nice for me. Now I have this in my y equals mx plus b form. That's what I've been wanting because I want to be able to pick out the slope and I want to be able to pick out the y-intercept. So let's look at this one. What is the m? What is the slope? Remember, that's the number being multiplied times x. In this case, it's 3. You're right. Then I want the y-intercept. That's the number that's being added or subtracted to x. In this case, that's my 6. So now we're ready to graph. We're going to go on the y-axis and plot the 6 first. There it is. Now from our slope. Remember, think of your slope not as 3, but 3 over 1. So you're going up 3 and right 1. Here is our second point that we need to draw our line. Okay, so we added another step at the beginning, right? So now we have to be able to get it into y equals. Then we can pick out the slope and the y-intercept. Then we can graph. Very, very important to really practice that process so that you'll be able to identify your slope no matter what form the equation's in to begin with. So I hope that helps you this week with your math concept. Bye for now.